So here's a statement that's gonna piss a lot of people off, but which is true nonetheless. AI is not going to be the insanely cool and world-changing technology that we think it is. As a matter of fact, AI technology is going to be a massive disappointment. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that AI won't change the world, because it 100% will. It's going to be a paradigm shift on par with the internet, electricity, and the printing press. But it's still going to be disappointing. You know how I can expect this video to go viral and get 10 million views, but then it goes viral and only gets 1 million views? And I can then be disappointed by the expectation that I set up, even though the video is still a massive success and probably a paradigm shift for the future of my channel. That is the same way in which AI is going to be a disappointment. Remember the 1950s? I sure do. It was a great time to be a straight white man with a middle-class background that had no physical or mental abnormalities. I'm sorry, what's that? Yeah, no, I am aware that I was born into the working class and I have mental illness, but they can't see that, and this is for a joke. You know how comedy works? Even if I was in the 50s, they probably wouldn't even have been diagnosing my mental illness back then because it's so mild. And why am I even having this conversation with you? You're not real. So back then, nuclear power was all the big rage, cool technology of the future. You had all these newspaper ads and theater spots where they said, oh, you're gonna have a nuclear-powered flying car in the next 5 years, and a toaster that can bring back slavery because it's got a uranium frame. Those Fallout ads with the robots that make your pancakes in the morning, and they can fly and have 12 different arms that are like Swiss Army knives. Those are only a slight exaggeration of what people were actually promised from nuclear power. And you know what? Nuclear power did change the world. And I'm not even cynically talking about the catastrophes that happened around it. I'm talking about the actual, real, noticeable, massive, positive impacts. It wasn't really present in people's everyday lives because you didn't get the plutonium-powered barbecue in your backyard, but the availability of massive amounts of cheap energy did change things a lot. Japan, as a global industrial superpower, the way it is today, wouldn't have been possible without nuclear energy. So you can thank and or blame Almighty Atom for the fact that anime is now a global situation. Nuclear-powered weeaboos. The technology had a massive impact on history and the technological and cultural development of pretty much all countries in the world. Still, not a quarter of what people actually expected happen. And the same thing is probably going to be true about AI. Which is good, because considering that the worst fears of enemies of nuclear power never came true, probably the worst fears of enemies of artificial intelligence are never going to come true either. But it's not going to be magic dust. It's not going to be able to solve all of our problems. It's not going to be able to transport us into fairyland. It's going to do a whole lot of things, but, and I have talked about this in the past, while AI can do a lot of things, it cannot do all of the things. But Burger, can't you see that they're already putting the AI into everything these days? Yes, I am painfully aware. You remember the 1900s, like the first decade of them? I sure do, and it was a great time to be all of the exact things that you could also be in the 1950s, except also like a Nazi or communist, even though those didn't really exist yet at the time. Shut the fuck up! I remember they had just come out with X-rays. And boy oh boy did they put that shit everywhere. You could go to the department store and get your feet x-rayed in order to find out what your shoe size is. And just to make this clear, measuring tape at that point had been invented, as had all of the techniques by which you could easily measure your foot without blasting it with fuck tons of radiation, which they knew about, by the way. They put x-rays into everything that they could come up with a way of putting x-rays into. And the same thing is beginning to happen with AI right now. I saw this, I think, on Twitter the other day, where some company is now evaluating job interviews with an AI to determine whether the people are trustworthy or not. And my question is, fucking why? Why would you use some kind of brute force bullshit machine, the biases and methods of which we couldn't possibly understand, as opposed to the algorithm sitting on the other side of that table that has developed mechanisms to detect the trustworthiness of other individuals for hundreds of millions of years of evolution. It's because you're a monkey who doesn't know what X-rays are but wants to put them everywhere you can come up with because you want to seem like you're at the front edge of technology. And we're just getting started with the AI craze. Shit is gonna get a lot worse before it gets better. I will guesstimate that the ratio for which we will be using AI versus the ratio of where AI is actually useful should be about the same as it was with X-rays. Which, I mean, you know, considering that we're putting AI into everything under the sun, it should probably be a lot of things still. But until we figure that out at some point, there's gonna be a lot of dumb stuff happening. Not because we only have a hammer, or because everything looks like a nail, but because the hammer is new and shiny, and it's the only tool we want to use. There's a kind of faith that I see emerging, especially in like Silicon Valley, where ironically there are also probably the most people who understand that AI is not in fact the second coming, that I do find a little bit scary. Tons of websites just use sort of algorithms and artificial intelligence for things where they really don't have to. They actually just make things more complicated. Like if you run Reddit or YouTube and you want to find out what the most popular things are, you don't need an algorithm for that. And you don't need to because you already have to. Your audience is already an algorithm that will for itself decide what it wants to watch and what it does not want to watch. And no matter how good the algorithm you develop is, it will never be as high fidelity as to what the audience wants to watch as the audience. But I mean, of course, the problem is also that the sum of decisions that people make aren't the things that they want. It's not really the goal to find out what's most popular now, is it? But at least these frontier tech companies know and understand what they're doing, and they learn and they try to develop AI into fields where it isn't necessary. But as AI technology becomes more ubiquitous and accessible to the end user, a lot of people are gonna misapply that shit in hilarious and potentially horrifying ways. Thank you very much for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the things, share this to your relevant communities, but do not spam them. This entire month will be videos out of the can. I'm recording most of them over the course of the next 3 days, so don't be surprised if I look the same in every single video. I'm doing NaNoWriMo as you watch this. Speaking of which, consider buying my book or some of the merchandise, or potentially just supporting me on Patreon or Subscribestar. And in that spirit, don't believe all the hype, but at the same time, don't be one of those people who thinks that nothing's gonna change, because that is just as unrealistic. And see you around, cunts.